Okay, part 2 of this is trying to program the deck object. I'm going to try to go a little bit faster. I'm not sure if it'll seem like it's a little bit faster, but I know the last video was like 20 minutes, so I'm try to do that. Okay, so let's go with class deck. That's going to be an object, and think about what you want a deck to be. So that's sort of where I came up with these things, right? So a deck has a list of cards currently in the deck, number of cards that are currently in the deck, and the discards are the ones that we've used to go to another hand, or they're no longer in that deck. And so that's the idea behind discards. It's not anything in particular. We're gonna have a couple of regular old a shuffle, shuffle the card kind of thing. I'm gonna just call that right at the beginning whenever I instantiate a deck. I'm gonna be able to deal my cards from my deck to a hand, and then this is gonna be the number of cards I want to deal, and then we'll draw. We'll also have a draw function, and then these are the length and the REPR, the repper, the string, add, and call. So these things are all we'll figure out what those guys are. Okay, so def init. I don't really need anything. I'm gonna just, when I instantiate a deck, it's just gonna have 52 cards in it. We could put something like number of decks if we wanted to, but I'm not gonna worry about that. We're just gonna put one deck at a time. So self.cards is my list of cards that are in my hand or in the deck. Self.numCards is going to be the number of cards in my deck currently. And then self.discards is going to be a list of cards that we've basically gotten rid of. All right, FV, we've seen this before. It's a list. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. SV suit value is, we'll keep them in the same order. Spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds, all uppercase. And then for F and FE, for suit and suit value, we're going to say card is equal to F plus S. And then self.cards.append. Self.cards.append. So cards is currently a list, and I'm appending a card object, right? So we have to have the card object already defined up here, and then we can create a list of cards in our deck. So note how these two are sort of going together. And then we're not going to really return anything. I don't have to really say that. Okay. Oh, I'll just turn none just so we get the cursor to jump back down where we're supposed to. So the next thing I think we want to do is shuffle, right? So obviously we don't want to return a hand that just has two of spades, 3 of spades, 4 spades, and then up to clubs and hearts and diamonds. We don't want it to look like a new deck of cards when you get it out of the box. We want to shuffle it, and we want to have the ability to shuffle. So we'll say shuffle self pass in, and then np.random and then we'll self.cards is the list of things that we're going to just pass in, and it'll shuffle them up. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and call shuffle here. So self dot. Hopefully that works. We'll see. Let's run this thing. So shift enter, and then D equals deck. Let's find out what happens. D. We haven't done the representation yet. We haven't done a string or a representation. So I'm going to go into self.cards. So I'm going to do in d.cards and then 0. Hopefully it's not. Okay, 4 spades. and then ace of clubs. So it did shuffle, so that's good. So that, I just making sure that that sucker right there worked before we went on. Okay, so it looks like it is. The next thing we want to sort of figure out, you know what, before we do that, let's create our, I mean, I was just going to go right down the list here, but I want to create this representation in string. So I want to know what happened, or I want to print something off. So in other words, I want to check my work, make sure that it's doing what I want it to do. So let's go. So representation, and let's go down. Let's say result is equal to nothing, and then for cin self dot cards. So for card in self dot cards, what I want to do is result plus equals string of cards. So it's a good thing that we did the str up here, because when I typecast in as a string, it will do what that thing tells it to do. So each one of those cards will be typecasted, and then plus comma. So if I just do the deck, all it's going to do is give me a string of all the cards that are in self.cards. And that's okay. Maybe, yeah, we'll figure that out. And then I'm going to just take the last comma off because it just doesn't look right. So result is equal to result everything up to, what is it, -1. And then return result. So the shift enter, and now I don't have to do this anymore. I can just do D enter. There you go. So you get king of. So if you did another one, shift enter. Why is it always king of spade? Okay, good. All right. So you see that it's not just like it would be here if I didn't hit the shuffle. So let me show you what happened. So if we didn't hit shuffle here, shift enter, it would just give us 2 of spades, 2 of clubs, so it would just give us 2 through ace basically. But obviously we don't like that. Shift enter, and we don't have to tell it to shuffle. But you could do another shuffle. So let's do that. Let's show that D. Let's wonder what print D would do. I don't think it would do anything because we don't have a string yet. And then oh, it did do it. Good. Cool. So it gave us that, and then we shuffled it, and then it gave us that one. So I don't know, for whatever reason it put the 4s and the 5s all together. Anyway, that's just shuffle command from let's see, NP, from the numerical Python random library. All right, so we can kind of see that the things that we're asking it to do are working, so that's a good thing. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to be able to deal to a hand, even though we haven't really defined what a hand is yet. I'm going to go ahead and assume that I kind of know what that sucker is, right? So you got to kind of design all of these at the same time. So we're going to call this deal, and the things that need to come in are always self. I'm going to get a hand and num cards. So I'm going to deal however many num cards I put into a hand, and whatever hand that I pass in is the hand that it's going to go into. And so what do we have to do there? I'm going to go for I in range num cards. I don't like the capital letter stuff anymore. So I'm going to go for I equal 1 num cards. I'm going to go hand dot cards dot append self dot draw. Now I haven't done this one yet. I probably should do this one. Matter of fact, let's do that. I'm going to say def draw. I'm going to draw a card from my hand. That means like get a card off the top. That's how we're sort of describing this thing. And all I'm going to do is pass in self, and self dot num cards minus equals 1. So let me make sure num cards is that, and then self dot discards dot append self zero. Right, so I'm appending. So in other words, when I draw a card off the top, that's going into my sort of discards pile, which means it's no longer in the deck, but it's one that, you know, it's over here. So in other words, if I needed to look at it again at some other time, I can know which cards were not in the deck. And then, so if that happens, then I want card equals self dot card, oops, dot card, the 0th one, right? Because that's the one that's on the top of the deck. Is that card? I think it's cards with an S. Yeah, cards with an S. Okay. So card is equal to self.cards, and then I basically want to delete out of my self.cards card. I want to delete that. I guess I could just pass in 0. All right, and then return card. Okay. So we did kind of these at the same time because I wanted to use, for however many cards you want me to deal to this hand, I want to append that because I'm returning card, and then it's going to return here, and it's going to append that to the hand. So notice how these are related to each other. Many of these things, when you're doing this object-oriented programming, sort of have to be thought about beforehand. Okay. Let's see. If I do that for loop, what am I missing here? Is there anything that I'm missing? Return. I probably want to return something. I definitely want to return hand, right? Because what I did was I'm pulling in hand, I'm doing something to it, and then I need to return it. So anytime I call this thing, it's going to be hand is equal to deal, and then I'm going to put the hand in and the whatever the deck is. But it's actually coming from that. So it would be deck dot deal, and then the hand goes in, and then it's changing what the hand is. All right, and hopefully we'll see an example of that in a second. So def underscore length. I think was the next thing. Yeah. So how many? So what is length? What should that return? Basically, just the number of cards in the hand, probably. So return length of self dot cards. There's another way to do it. We could probably just say self dot num cards, but we'll just leave it at that. Def underscore str. So I want to do something a little different with this, just to show you that you could you know, have a representation different than the actual string or the typecasting of a string. So let's just pass in self. Then down here in this stage, I just want to result is equal to cards in deck. And then I'm going to pass in a new line, and then for I in range length of self dot cards. I'm going to go down, and we want to say result plus equals stri. So the string plus, and we could probably do this with an f string. I just want to get called f strings or messing around with that because it kind of messed up my. And I don't know if you guys remember in the last video, the last set of videos, that when I used f strings, it kind of made the indentation go in the wrong spot. So I'm just going to use the plus operator for strings and self cards, the ith one, and then at the end of that, I want to add a new line. All right, and result plus equals if we want to know the cards in the discard pile. So I got a new line. It's going to come down. It's going to get cards in discard pile /n. You know, just to make sure we're keeping track of everything, and make sure that's a plus equals. And then for I in range. So I'm going to do the same thing that we just did. Length of self dot discards, I think is the name of it. We'll see here in a second if it doesn't work. Result plus equals stri. See, I could just copy paste this. Control V, and then this would be discards. string. All right, looks all good. Looks good. And then we're going to return result, or res. Shift enter, and then if I hit D, I should get that. But if I hit print D, you get what we just described here, right? So it says cards in this cup out none, right? So 0 to 51, right? Because I have 52 cards in the deck, and this is going to be a mess here. So it's going to give you bird, and then so that's the first. So 0th card is Queen of Spades, and then the 0th card because we shuffled it. All right, I knew that was going to give us a mess. I'm just going to take that out. I'm just going to take this whole thing out. Shit, there, give nothing. Okay. All right. Let's see. What else do we want to do here? Let me go back over to our thing. So string. So what if I wanted to add returns a deck object that combines 2 sets of cards? All right, so if I wanted to add another deck, I'm not going to worry about that. I don't recall too many times doing that. We're gonna leave that alone for now. What if I wanted, so when a deck is called with a list of cards, it will create a deck that contains those cards. When a deck is called with a list of cards, it will create a deck that contains those cards. Okay, well, we can do that. All right, I'll assume that we want to do something like that. I think these are what we have right now are probably the main functions that we want to do, but I don't know. I think this was just introduced just so we can have a call special function. So let's do that just to show you what it does. And so I'm going to pass in a certain number of cards. What that means is temp equals to deck and self cards equals to cards, right? The ones that were passed in, and then self cards equals to nothing. Self dot num card. So we got to define sort of all this stuff. I think it's num underscore cards because I don't like that is equal to the length of cards, and then for C in temp cards. What do you want to do? Well, I want to say if C not in cards. Then what do I want to do? I want to say self dot discard. Right, I'm going to take that out, and then oh yeah, we've already done that. Right, so I've created a deck, a temporary deck. I've set self.cards equal to whatever cards you passed in, and then self.discards, I got to figure out what that is. Well, how am I going to figure it out? Well, I got this temporary deck, and I'm basically going in and saying if C from this temp cards is not in the list of cards that you gave me, then I'm going to stick it in the discards. So it doesn't matter the order or any of that business, but we will return because what I'm doing is I'm calling a hand and telling it, okay, yes, that's what we'll do. Okay. So let's practice it. Let's figure out how to do this. So I got to hit Shift Enter. Figure out how to use this guy. So D is deck, and then let's see, C1 is equal to card. Print C1. C2 is equal to card. Ace of clubs. Print C2. So I'm going to have a 3 deck hand here. Card is equal to ace of hearts. And C3. All right, so it looks like they're all working. And now what I want to do, so if I print the deck, or print a deck right now, it would be that. It would be all of the cards. But if I call that little dude if I call that deck, so D of, let's see, C1, C2, and C3. make sure cards is, oh yeah, it's a list, so that's good. So put it in as a list, shift enter, and then print, oops, I don't know what that was. Print D, it should only give us those 3 cards and everything else is in the discard pile. Let's find out what happened. Okay, so it gave us the 3 cards that were in the deck, and then everything else is in the discard pile. Okay, well, that's all I got. Hopefully you guys got something out of this one. We will continue the mission next time, and I believe we're going to do our hand again with some special methods and kind of knock that out. All right, hopefully this wasn't too long out here.